Welcome back to Junction 119. This is Casen.
This is Kellan. How are you, my guy?
Good.
I
It's
hadn't asked you that off air, so I was like, oh, I'll ask him
yeah.
that now. Start the show.
Yeah. It's a typical middle of the week. We're back here on a Wednesday on time as scheduled.
Yes, we are.
So
And I'm in a very thankful mood with a lot going on this week. So just want to say, man, maybe it's the holiday coming up, but I'm thankful for a lot of things in my life as of late, including you and this show, my friend. We're going to talk about football. We're going to work into some beginning of the college basketball season, which officially was Monday,
mhm.
was like the first day. So we're going to talk about a little bit about that. And of course, we're going to talk about Loki as we all prepare for the finale this week, right? This Friday. This will be the last episode of the season.
Yes.
So why don't you take
I
away?
do
No, go ahead. I'm
I
sorry.
do I do have a quick thing of note. Real quick, I just thought it would be kind of a fun time to bring this up.
Sure.
Um, I to get a little bit of a football note from across the pond, the other type of football. We talked a lot previously about Wrexham back when they got promoted to
Yeah.
League Two. So I just figured I'd at least mention the update. Here we are partway through the season. And I mean, absolutely incredible things happening in League Two. Wrexham and the other National League team that came up with them, Notts County, are
Nuts. Yep.
tied for second in League Two right now after 16 games.
Who's
And
first?
they and uh, it Stockport County. So
Stockport. Okay.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of really close. I mean, Stockport has 35 points, and then Notts County and Wrexham are tied for 30. And then there's some people behind them with 29, 29,
If
27, 26. So
if you're Stockport,
it's a real heavy, yeah.
oh yeah, if you're
Uh
Stockport, you're probably like, oh man, we got to keep winning because Knott's and Wrexham will like
I,
decimate each other to try and get us.
so for example, Notts County and Wrexham are tied for second with 30 points, and 15th place in League Two has 20. So
Wow,
there's 10 points difference between second and 15th.
sounds
So
like
it's a
the Premier
very
League some years.
very wide middle of the conference or the league. So just thought I'd give a little English football update on that.
Yeah, very long way to go still. Really long way to
Yeah, a
go.
long way
I
to
mean,
go.
that is
Long way to
an
go.
incredibly long season. So yeah, shout out Wrexham. Shout out to all those teams, honestly, for making it to League Two and in the race, I'll let you start off the NFL. Sock in my mouth last week of like, hey, not as a whole lot of storylines. You were right. There's always storylines in the NFL. Of course there is. Like the first one, I absolutely, definitely want to bring up to you. Hey, the Bills lost to the Bengals. Of course, I'm going to begin with that.
Yeah. Um, it's yeah. I mean, it's another
Now,
one of those things where
right.
I mean, it looked like it played out pretty much the exact same way as the playoff game did. Where I mean, the Bills are just honestly probably not as good of a team as we thought they were.
And
I mean,
we already thought they were not as good as a team.
well, I mean, right. I mean, we've talked about. Oh, sorry. We've talked about all the issues before with the bickering Bills and just all that stuff, but I think it just comes down to the fact of I think they're just a better than average team, and
Hmm.
I don't think they're really Super Bowl caliber anymore. I mean, they could go. I mean, they could get hot in December and January and go on a
Right.
tear, and anything could happen. It's just I think they're not. They are not in line with the Chiefs or the Eagles or
The
any
Bengals.
the Bengals. Even I mean, slow start with an injured Joe, but I think the Bengals turn the corner and they're back to where they were last year.
Yeah,
So
I think I even said to you last week the Bengals are figuring it out. And
yeah,
it's funny with the Bills is just like everything you just said, I will use as a springboard to say they could genuinely go on a tear to make the playoffs because I think they are capable of flipping a switch. Problem is, we've agreed all year they're not built. At least they don't look built to win in January, which is when you really want to. That's when you really
yeah,
want to be able to flip the switch. And I don't know. I also think that this probably would have been the result if the game with DeMar Hamlin would have played out last year.
I would agree.
I really think the Bengals would have gone on to win that game. So, and then they won the playoffs as well. So I don't know, man. I think the Bengals have, to some degree, the number of, not so much the Chiefs anymore, because the Chiefs kind of squashed that. But maybe that's kind of been replaced with this Bills team. Hard to say, but I mean, if they meet in the playoffs, we'll see.
It's just, I think the Bills definitely have some defensive issues, which, I mean, again, to be fair to the Bills, I mean, Leslie Frazier stepped down, and I think that kind of caused a lot of issues. And so I think last I knew, Sean McDermott was still just calling the plays, and so that's definitely not ideal from a game planning perspective. But yeah, I mean, as of now, the Bills are not in the playoffs. I mean, they're the 8th seed in the AFC, so they're directly behind the Bengals right now. Which
they're 5 and 4.
We can get into that. We can get into that, but like the entire AFC North is in the playoffs right now, which is just hilarious.
We cannot let that happen. Like collectively as a society, we cannot let all AFC North teams. I don't think that's even possible. Is that I'm kidding. But
I don't know. I don't think it's not like there's a rule against it. I think it's just it doesn't happen. It's not. I don't think it will.
No,
because there's a lot of really good teams that are going to beat up on each other, and it's going to even itself out. But it's just that, for that example of like the Bills, this was a game the Bills had to win to want to feel good about their playoff chances, and here they are in November, not where they want to be. I mean,
very true.
They beat the Dolphins, and the Dolphins are leading the division right now.
Right. I do want to kind of move us along just because we do have such a packed show. Not moving on from NFL. I wanted to hear your thoughts on, I guess, what was the game of the week, Eagles Cowboys. You know, I did get a chance to watch most of that game, and Eagles came out on top, as I think most people would think. And obviously, it was also in Philadelphia, but yeah, honestly, one of the more fun divisional games like I've watched in a while. Like that doesn't have to do with any team you and I root for.
Mm-hmm.
Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean,
Jalen Hurts, shaking off a knee injury, he ended up being okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Eagles. Yeah, I mean, they definitely kind of bounced back from what was a lackluster performance against the Commanders. I mean, they still managed to win, but what were they doing? Letting the Commanders. Yeah, I mean, it was probably a little bit of a letdown after the honestly domination of the Dolphins. So it was probably just a bit of a letdown on that one. But yeah, I mean, they seem to be back into shape after losing the weird game to the Jets. So,
and I just think it's noteworthy that they were able to beat not only probably their main division rival, but also someone they could definitely see in the playoffs. I think.
Yeah,
the NFC. Down the road.
I think that was definitely a big win.
Like, we talk about a team not taking care of business. Let's talk about a team that took care of business against the teams.
Yeah, exactly. And I think when you're talking about the Cowboys, it's just like the Cowboys. I mean, it was another classic, just not enough. I mean, the final play of the game was a pass short of the line, and I mean, I don't know what he was doing running that route short anyway. It was just,
we got to mention another game, mainly because I, and friend of the show, Dylan Cania, sat here at the beginning of the NFL season and all predicted Baltimore. Like, I think behind our squads and stuff like that. The Ravens are incredible. Like, we haven't actually talked about that, but I mean, like it's been like 2 or 3 weeks now of domination. I mean, they absolutely blew away the Seahawks at home.
Yeah,
and they dominated the Lions earlier this year. I mean, I'm not saying this is going to translate into great play in the playoffs, because we've seen a similar thing from why am I blanking? Help me.
The Lamar.
Thank you so much. I was like, wait, why am I drawing a blank? Lamar Jackson. He was, he struggles against the Steelers and he struggles to throw the ball in the playoffs. But they're 7-2 right now and 3-1.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think they probably had our season preview podcast on repeat in the locker room. just listening to us dog them and doubt them. I don't know. I mean, I think it was. I mean, it was us and everybody else in the national media just didn't believe in them after the last season. And I think there were a lot of questions
and Lamar's
about
contract stuff last
well,
year.
yeah,
You know, that
and,
was back and forth, and so but I don't know. They just kind of put their heads down, grindstone, and they're just continuing to win ball games by a lot, to an alarming degree. If you're you and I,
yeah. I mean, I don't.
I'm sitting around like they won't beat the Steelers though, because they
Yeah,
haven't done that.
I don't know what entirely. I don't know. I mean, it could be sort of a mirage. I don't know. I mean, because if you go back and through their wins, I mean, they beat the Texans, in CJ's first game. They beat the Bengals with a destroyed Joe by 3.
They lost to the Colts.
They lost to the Colts.
They lost to the Steelers.
They beat Dorian Thompson-Robinson. I mean, it's just like half of these wins are against backups.
That's true.
Or just really.
And if I'm being honest, that's like the story of the NFL this year. I swear, like by this point in the season, like so many quarterbacks are injured. It's like half the league.
I think it'll come down to this week. It'll come down to this week against the Browns.
I think that's a huge game.
Because we'll get into the Browns game next, but the defense is back on top and dominating. Deshaun looked decent, and so that's going to be a good matchup, I think.
Yeah, the Browns shut out the Cardinals. That's so hard to do in the NFL. It's so difficult to do.
I think. Yeah, we'll pivot to that here in a second, but yeah, I think this game will tell us a lot about both teams and how they compare to the rest of the league. I think so.
Yeah,
we'll see. I mean, the Ravens have a really difficult back half of the season, and so we'll just have to see if they'll be able to continue to keep pace with that. But
for sure,
I could also see a world where they sort of slip and end up. I mean, they're 7-2, and I could see a world where they end up being like having like 10, 11 wins. So they can only win a few more times. I mean, they've got a lot of really good opponents coming up next. So,
well, here's to Cleveland. Why don't you talk about them?
Yeah. So, like we mentioned, the incredible Browns defense managed to get a shutout against the Clayton Tune-led Arizona Cardinals. So,
true.
Not entirely impressive, but I think they had 9 total sacks. I believe Arizona only had 50 some yards.
I mean, sometimes I feel like I'm just chock full of sports cliches, but I mean, 2 things that our conversation here remind me. It's hard to win in the NFL. I don't care what week. It's like incredibly even harder to actually blank a team. I mean, even someone gets even some point you go midfield and someone gets a field goal. Like
I don't know if you heard this, but it was the Browns' first shutout since 2007.
Didn't hear that, but that's a great stat. Like I mean, like you wonder how long it's been since like a team's done that. Any team's done that. And yeah,
funny fact about that season, the Browns won 10 games and missed the playoffs.
Oh, it was that year, wasn't it? Yeah. That was like the winningest Browns team in quite a while for anyone like our age. So.
And then they went out and I think they won 4 games in 2008. So yeah, it was
up and downs, man.
yeah.
But
so yeah,
seriously, for all listeners out there, there's your preview for the Browns Ravens game. I mean, seriously, I really think that if the Browns come out and are able to kind of slow down the Ravens offense, beat them, it's like okay, so the Ravens are kind of what we said they might be.
I mean, and for what it's worth. Deshaun came out and probably had his best game of the season so far. I mean, the Cardinals, but he looked better. I mean, there's been a lot of conversation about his shoulder and his injury and stuff. And he definitely had a better arm, better throwing motion. It looked cleaner coming out for the most part. He's still got a lot of weird mechanic issues. Like he has a really weird problem with throwing. He throws it down too much, and so he ends up throwing short. And he got for whatever reason, he gets a lot of passes batted. I don't really. It's because he releases really low. I mean, he's 6'3". That shouldn't be happening, but Yeah, I mean, and of course there was a really hilarious play where a pass got batted at the line and flew forward like 15 yards into the end zone for a touchdown catch.
I
And so
did
it
see
was just
that.
absolutely ridiculous.
I wondered if you were
But
going to
yeah,
bring that up. Lucky play of the
which
week.
yeah, I mean, I swore that was gonna get picked when I saw that happen. I was like, this is gonna get picked.
I have one more game to talk about, but I want to save it for of the weeks. Is that fair?
Sure.
Cool. Good for the NFL for now. Are we trying to go to college?
I don't know if this was the one you're gonna talk about, but Germany.
No, actually.
Oh, okay. Um so the probably the best matchup of the week
Yeah, it was a
was
good
at
game too.
9:30. It was 9:30 Eastern
Yeah,
because it took place in Frankfurt, Germany.
I mean, the amount of European games that we get now, like 4 a year, usually we've been getting in our lifetime when there is a team or multiple teams in Europe that are in the rest of the league, it is going to be kind of wild that like you can roll right out of bed on a Sunday and just watch the NFL all day. Like
Yeah.
that is like what the NFL is aiming for. I mean, 100%.
Yeah.
And that's
I mean,
happen.
if you're in LA, it's on at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
Like incredible.
Well, you know, it's funny. I once talked to someone who was born and raised in the Los Angeles area. This is a long time ago. And he said to me something along the lines of, how do you guys wait until 12 o'clock for college football to kick off over here? Because I met him when he had since moved to like the Midwest. And so I was like, oh yeah, I guess he's like, yeah, it's like, you know, it's like 6, 7, 8, and it's like 9 a.m. It's like kicking off for us. It's like, wow. It's like, yeah, but then you guys don't have anything to watch at night. So, you know, there's a trade-off.
I mean, I think I mentioned it a couple of weeks ago, but yeah, when I was in Vegas, I did that for a weekend, and I was like, this is incredible. Like Ohio State, Penn State was on at 9 in the morning.
9 a.m.
I was like, what?
Literally breakfast in college football. I mean, that is like really, really cool. But again, goes back to our new Big Ten conversation, which, you know, we'll get there down the road when it happens. But anyway, back to this. That was a good game too, and the NFL shipped that game to Germany. And once again, the German fans just like showed out. Atmosphere is just incredible every time they've gone there, which is why I think definitely there will be an NFL team in Germany. It might be just one, but there will be one. I really think that like the atmosphere just looks amazing. Like it just, I don't know, it had the continued, like we're used to stoppages over here, both in our football game and everything.
Yeah.
But I mean, like it has the energy, especially in Germany, I think, of truly like a soccer match over there. Like it really, like where it's just continued noise the whole time. So I don't know. I welcome that if that does happen. Yeah, those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I'll try and keep my thoughts on it a little as short as I can.
Sure.
So there was a lot of weird conversation about this because whenever you're talking about the European games, there's a big conversation about the travel. And the Dolphins went, I think, on Tuesday, Monday or Tuesday, and then the Chiefs didn't go until Thursday or Friday. So the Dolphins were there for a couple days before the Chiefs even left. And so there was a lot of questions over if the Chiefs would be ready or not. And which kind of is counterintuitive. The Chiefs stormed out to a 21-0 lead and then just completely fell apart.
Yeah, but they still won. They were basically able to stave off the Dolphins' comeback.
Barely.
The Dolphins ran out of time. Yeah, but they did. I mean, yeah. But that goes to show, like, I think everyone's going to be trying to experiment with like what's the best time to go. I mean, you know, they're working on that jet that can make it to like I think I mentioned on here before, but they're working on like that jet that can go from New York to London in 4 hours. I mean, even when that exists, my thoughts are, yeah, but you still got to like pinpoint exactly when the best time to go is for actual game time so that everyone's not just completely asleep. Like others, including like Josh Allen said earlier this year when they were there, he's like, yeah, I just literally couldn't keep my eyes open. It's like, yeah, I bet you couldn't, man. Like for sure. Understandable. So yeah.
I mean, it definitely weird still. I mean, again, we've talked about it several times now. There's something wrong with the Chiefs offense. I don't like, this is an incredible defense and probably the best defense Mahomes has ever played with. And so it's totally unfair for Mahomes to have a defense that's like the best in the league. Uh,
It is.
along with
It's
like
not if he's
if they
not playing well.
well,
They
that's what
are.
I'm saying.
Yep.
Is that if he ever can, if they can figure out what's wrong and get back to the Chiefs' offensive last year, this is just unfair for everybody involved. So we'll see. I mean, something to keep an eye on. My fantasy team was very disappointed that Travis only had like 2 points. In fantasy, I think he had like 2 catches or something.
I just want to throw this out there. Can you imagine if T Swift had been at that game? Like, like I just talked about the atmosphere. Can you imagine if she had been in the house too yet again for the German game? I mean, that would have been insane.
Yeah.
Actually, I think would have been the most raucous, minus the first time she was ever there. So, anyway.
Yeah. Well, anyway, final note on the Chiefs. This is their bye week now, coming back. I think Travis is going to go to Buenos Aires for Taylor's concert, probably. He hinted about that. We'll see.
Yeah.
If he can get right, I think he's probably injured too a little still from the injury he took in Minnesota. I think he's still recovering from that. And I think if Mahomes can sort of maybe just take a step back and relax, we'll see. We'll see how they come back because they got a big one against the Eagles coming back out of the bye. So,
Super Bowl rematch. So,
yeah.
Let's switch gears to college because there's a decent amount to talk about. But again, we also want to squeeze some college basketball discussion in here prior to of the weeks. I mean, honestly, decent amount of upsets this week. But the one thing I wanted to note is it's kind of interesting how Missouri doesn't have Georgia's number. You can't say that, but Missouri always plays Georgia tough. Like since they've been on this meteoric rise and like since they've been dominant and kind of started their own dynasty, Missouri is always a team that's like within a score every year. Like, and this was no different.
30
to 21, Georgia won.
I think it's just sort of like Eli Drinkowitz, the coach at Mizzou, has always kind of been clowned a little bit because they've had issues getting like statement wins and stuff,
right.
But they're always frisky. They're always in games. And I mean,
who deserves to be in the SEC more, them or Vanderbilt?
Them 100%. I mean, they dominated early,
at least in football.
Right once they joined, and then they kind of fell off. But then now they're back into being like interesting and at least competitive. So, yeah, I mean they're fun to watch. And I mean you can't be upset losing to Georgia by 9. So
no,
give them a good game.
I will say that I just was kind of going through scores here. Oregon hung 663 on California, obviously. Not there, but Bedlam happened. Oklahoma State and Oklahoma State Cowboys took it. Just kind of
that they did.
Hankering back to, I mean, I saw that result, but I was just like hankering back to, oh, hey, what did Casen say last week?
The final Bedlam.
Come on.
So the final Bedlam for the foreseeable future.
That's right.
Oklahoma is going to the SEC, and Oklahoma State and Oklahoma have not really expressed any interest in playing each other for a while. And
not only that, but like if you're Oklahoma State, you're like, you picked Texas over us to go with them, so it's like fine.
Yeah. I mean, so I think that it means a lot to Oklahoma State to be able to send them out of the conference with an L, and they get to keep the trophy. For
that's right. For potentially ever.
For who knows how long. So yeah.
That's right. So that's solid here.
And yes, as I did say, capital F for us.
There it is again. And then Clemson bested Notre Dame. Clemson Tigers, who have had a subpar season by their more recent standards, get another key win over the Irish at home.
So I would
you
like
look just
to
disgusted. I don't.
I would like to issue a very, very angry note to Clemson fans, because
let's hear it.
Before this game, so Clemson went out and they lost to NC State last week. And between these two games, Dabo was like doing his coach's show or whatever on some radio, taking calls from fans.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a particular fan that called in to basically ask Dabo, what are we paying you $11 million for if we're not winning games? I don't know, maybe the 2 national championships that he won you in the middle of nowhere,
beating Alabama twice during this era of Saban Alabama.
What are we
doing here?
Talking about?
What are we doing here? Come on.
You as a university, Clemson was the nobody 10 years ago before Dabo got there, and then he came in and you were winning games, winning bowl games, and going to the playoff, winning the playoff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just looking
at my laptop screen, by the way. I'm listening to you.
I'm just saying that's not good enough. You were in the playoff 2 years ago.
Honestly, dude, and this is like what I mean, it's a real thing. It's the Saban effect. And if you're not familiar with the Saban effect, listeners, what I'm just simply referring to is you have all of these coaches in the SEC and just the South in general, they're ACC school who not these coaches, but these fans who root for these teams who see what Saban and Alabama have done. And it's like, we have like similar, if not better resources. Why can't we do that and be this good every year? And for the longest time, the answer is, well, you don't have Nick Saban. That's really the answer to that question. But Kirby Smart has been able to kind of figure it out, this new kind of transfer portal, the era and everything like this, NIL. And so I just think that you right there, you have Clemson fans at least angry Clemson fans going through their version of kind of the Saban effect. It's like, we had all this success. Why is it not sustaining? It's like, do you realize how hard those 2 seasons were to even make happen? So man, it's the Saban effect. I really do think it's that.
Yeah, I mean,
the Kirby Smart effect now. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's a couple things. I mean, I really don't want to defend Dabo, and I'm mad I kind of have to sort of defend him, but it's just like, yeah, I mean, like Dabo deserves some criticism for not sort of going along with NIL, because that hurt recruiting, and that hurt.
It's now visible. Roster. It's very visible now.
So now you're stuck with much less talent than they had before, but also at the same time, it was bound to happen. Like people don't want to go, some do, but it's just like some players don't want to go to winning machines because they know they're going to sit on the bench for 3 years.
Yeah,
like they like to go elsewhere, which is why Florida State, for example, was able to rise so quickly, because Florida State is a great place to play. It's a great school. A lot want to go to Tallahassee.
Great history.
And I mean, it's easy to recruit there when you're like, hey, we've won natties here before. Come here, and we can build this place up, and you'll be able to beat Clemson.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, especially if maybe you just don't vibe with Dabo, you can go play for somebody with a different personality.
Right. And even something that I've noticed myself is sometimes it really does just come down to playing time. Like you said, it's like, look, the second I get to school, I have a clock that's running. You know what I mean? You're only a college student one time. And it's like, I've heard of situations where, I vibed with that coach totally. It's just, I wasn't going to see the field or the playing surface, for 2 years. And I just didn't feel like sticking around. You know what I mean?
Which is exactly the thing, where which is what made NIL such a success for the players, because if you could go to, say you're a big time, 6'4", 350 defensive lineman, and you could go to Georgia and sit for 2 years and then play your junior year, or you could go to Vanderbilt and play all 3 years, and Vanderbilt offers you like half as much as Georgia, then you're like, maybe I take that deal because I can show what I'm worth to the teams and get a better deal.
Yeah.
Like out of college.
I also think like you've seen stories, and maybe this isn't a good example, but you've seen stories even before NIL of like people like now a Jalen Hurts, who fantastic teammate, ended up going somewhere else, after he lost a job to Tua, right? At Alabama, went to Oklahoma.
Yeah, he went to Oklahoma. Yeah.
Yep. And he's able to make self-made, and now he's worked his way to be one of the best quarterbacks literally in the NFL, so more don't happen that way. But I'm saying, it's sort of like hey, there's something to be said for Go to a place where you can actually get seen and actually get more work in to get better. You know what I mean? So that you can potentially make it into the league. You get more time playing. I mean, it's better for your development, which is why it would be nice if we saw in college basketball, we saw more, we saw more great players stick around for more than just 1 year, but that's a different conversation. I did want to flat out say this though. I've had this sneaky suspicion that like this is a year where Alabama comes up from out of nowhere and wins a national championship. Like that, I knew that was going to be your reaction, but like, can't you see it brewing there? Like I literally was like sitting here. I'm like, you know what? They're sitting in the playoff rankings as of today. They're 8th, but I'm sitting here looking at who's ahead of them. I'm like, there's a pathway there, and if they get in it, do not be surprised if this is like Saban's, oh, you forgot about us season.
I just don't. I mean, I would just be surprised if they beat Georgia, because that would involve them beating Georgia.
Yeah,
and
that's assuming they do that.
And even in that context, I don't know. I mean, they lost to Texas. Texas continues to like not look impressive, but I mean, as far as the committee goes, maybe they'll just overlook it and say it was an early season stumble.
What I mean. Yeah,
kind of give them a pass for it because they're clearly much better.
I mean, if they demolish everyone on the way to Georgia, win that game, it's like, oh snap! Because by then, Ohio State and or Michigan will have lost. Florida State,
but then I
don't know
what you do, because it's like, how could you not put Georgia in? Like,
well, exactly. Like that's what
that's the crazy
part.
Like
in my head, I keep thinking to myself, the 4-team playoff era is about to go out with potentially a very annoying one yet again.
The thing is, this would have been the perfect year for the 12-team playoff.
It really would have been.
There's so many fun teams that could have been in here. And like you could have had
we've been
amazing
saying all year,
matchups.
There's no one really dominant team, and no, I don't believe Ohio State is either, even though they're number one. They're not.
The only thing that kind of, along with what I just said, the only thing that I think is good is that I don't think it's going to change next year. So I think we're in for pretty crazy college football seasons for a while, because it's sort of an NIL era thing.
It's like a transfer portal thing. It's made the product better. Honestly,
I mean, there's no just untouchable team, which is good for the sport, because anybody can win on any given Saturday, or any given Wednesday if you're in the MAC.
Dude, shout out BG. Bowling Green plays Kent State tonight. Shout out the alma mater. Who've also been playing well as of late.
Yeah.
But
so
I digress. I really wanted to propose that scenario to you, just because like I was really thinking about this 2 days ago, and I'm like, this is gonna be like dumb. Here I can already tell. No, I'll tell you when it was. Last night, we're recording this on Wednesday. Last night the rankings come out. I watched the show and I was like, oh man, I watched a little bit of that ranking show, but I was like, there's a path. But anything else in college football, or do you want to switch to college basketball? Because we'll go to other weeks afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just mention
sure.
Texas almost lost to Kansas State. Almost in overtime. But
which I mean, the Wildcats have played spoiler in that conference all the time. You know what I mean? It's just what they do. I mean, very much like the Big 12, like Kansas State throws their weight around of like, hey man, a lot of it runs through us in multiple sports. Which when your main rivals, the Jayhawks, it's like, it makes sense in terms of brand.
Yeah.
You know?
And Chris Kleiman, head coach of Kansas State, I believe he was at North Dakota State. Is that?
I honestly don't know.
I think it was North Dakota State. I think he won a ton of games there. So yeah, great team. I mean, so I don't know if you saw the end of that game, but when it went into overtime, Texas had the ball first, settled for a field goal. Kansas State's turn, 4th down. They decided to go for the touchdown rather than setting for the field goal to tie it, and they didn't get it. It was like 4th and 1, I think. It was like 4th and goal from the 1, basically, and they just barely didn't get it. And it's just one of those debates where it's like, do you just kick it for the tie, or do you
what's your philosophy?
Go for the win on the road. But yeah, interesting philosophy debate in coaching.
It used to be the cliche used to be that you would go for the win on the road and the tie at home. That was always the cliche. It's tough. I mean, honestly, there's depending on scenarios, and we see them all the time. It's just one of the things in the game. It says a lot about what kind of coach you are, because I've always been, and I think you've even said this on the show before, that is one of those situations where there is a no-win situation if it doesn't work. If it works, you look like a genius, one way or the other. There's no necessarily right or wrong. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you look like a genius if it works, but if it doesn't work, then
but if you go for the safe move and kick it, you could miss it.
Right. Well, that's what I mean. That's also what I mean. Like if you win and you made that decision, you still look like, a mastermind.
Yeah.
It's like, we knew our team, we knew we could win in overtime or in the next drive or possession, whatever. You know what I mean? We knew our defense could make the stop or something like that. Like you look a lot smarter, but like if it doesn't go your way, you just look, you look bad, but you just got to take your lumps if it doesn't go your direction. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think my only thing was I would have kicked it there to tie it in that overtime and then just tried to get the stop the next one. Like, I don't know. I mean, I just thought it was a little early to maybe just end the game, but
the one philosophy I would have if I was ever like a coach is this idea of if I'm playing someone who we're not as good as and like we're on the verge of an upset, I always have believed that like you stand more chance of losing the longer it goes because you don't quite have the horses to deal with them.
Well, that's the thing though.
Yeah.
Is that Kansas State was the better team the entire second half of that game.
Yeah, but
they were dominating Texas.
But that's the thing. Like they still are not as good as Texas. So it's still like
I don't know.
Maybe it makes sense. Like maybe we disagree here. And maybe that's good for conversation.
Texas, by the way, Quinn Ewers was injured, and so they had a backup in, and he was like mentally unstable the entire game.
It wasn't Arch Manning, was it? I'm kidding when I asked that. I
know it wasn't.
If Arch Manning had gone in for Texas, that would have been plastered everywhere. Everywhere.
Yeah. I'm surprised they didn't, but yeah, I mean, for most of that game, at least in the second half, they had Malik Murphy like in a torture chamber. Because he was just not prepared.
House of Horrors, man.
Anyway, the only other thing I wanted to bring up interesting of note was Air Force. Air Force was number 25 ranked last week, and they got annihilated at home by Army. So interesting service academy.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Army was like, I'll tell you what branch we are. So anyway, that's awesome. So I'm still trying to like think, I know what I'm gonna do. I was just thinking about what am my trademark of the week. I know what it is gonna be. So is it time for the hardwood? Sure. This is November. It's not March yet. We'll get there. But college basketball started on Monday. And I'll tell you what, it is one of those seasons that like always creeps up on me because like last week, I'm always kind of bummed like, October's over. But then college basketball starts, and I've always loved college basketball. So definitely some interesting also just literally any given night when it comes to college basketball. Probably we'll get to the one in the women's, but I just want to talk about. Let's start with the men's. James Madison upsets number 4, Michigan State. I always kind of look at the early rankings though as like in basketball, sort of like how I might have said in football before, how I kind of wish we didn't rank anyone in football until like week 4 or 5. To get a realistic, they do it for headlines. I mean, I know why we do it in storylines. It's just I've always said that basketball we shouldn't rank anybody until like Christmas. It's just I don't know, man. I just not being serious, but you get what I mean. Like you don't really get the temperature of how good really everyone is for a while,
Yeah, I mean,
you might disagree, but I mean the obvious teams are obvious. But I mean, they change so much.
I definitely agree with that. I mean, obviously people leave, but like you just look at the rankings and you're like, okay, well, UConn won the title last year and they're 6th. Purdue got bounced in the first round by Fairleigh Dickinson, and they're 3. Like it's just kind of like you look at who you know's on the team,
right,
and who's coming back, and you're like, this doesn't compute.
It's like Joe Lunardi and all the guys were like, I don't know these guys and these guys.
Yeah, I mean, but then at the same time, FAU is number 10, because of last year. So it's
Because
like
of last year, yeah.
if you're going to use last year for some teams, why not apply that logic to everybody?
I heard someone suggest something along the lines of, it would be incredible if they like replayed the Final Four at the beginning of every season.
Yeah.
Like have that be a mini tournament at the very beginning. I was like, there's no coach who would want to do that.
Well, I mean, it's like, as far as like Purdue goes, I mean, the voters and stuff are going to be like, well, we look at the roster of who's returning and who and all that stuff. I'm like, yeah, but like when it comes to Purdue, you didn't apply the Matt Painter curve and subtract 10 spots.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's Matt Painter we're talking about.
That's awesome.
Anyway, yeah, I mean, James Madison. What a time to be a James Madison student.
Student. Yeah.
I mean, come on.
The Dukes,
like
man.
the Dukes are banned from postseason play in football, but they're just winning everything. Football, basketball, soccer. I guess should just beat UCF.
They're good. I saw that team with my own eyes, if you recall. Their men's soccer team, anyway. Yeah, I mean, honestly, just shout out to that whole department, man. Like, honestly, like, just they're doing great stuff. I wanted to.
I just wanted to at least throw a bone out there. We'll put a pin in it. Is it a time to have a conversation about Tom Izzo? We'll put a pin in it, but just.
I mean, you know what? Like, no is the answer to that question. I'm just going to flat out tell you that. We'll see how this season goes, but no, I don't think so. I will say, though, that it's kind of interesting that Izzo's kind of like, he's like one of the last big pillars, you know what I mean? Left from his era, because I got to tell you, it was kind of like for a lot of people, and I'm pretty new to this just as an alumnus, but it was weird to see, these guys over my shoulder here tip off without Boeheim on the bench. I mean, it was just weird as in, because it hasn't been that way in 47 years, whatever it is.
Did you see the joke about the 1974 alumni?
No.
So there was a picture, like a screenshot from the Syracuse game, and it was like an old guy wearing a sign that said "Class of 1974, first game back," and people were like, Boeheim was hired in 75. Was he just not a Boeheim fan?
I did not see that. Wow. I mean, like when a coach is coached at anywhere, NFL or whatever, that long, I mean, we're talking literal whole multiple generations that literally don't know a time when Boeheim was not the head coach at Syracuse men's basketball.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that said, Adrian Autry, first win. Also Bowling Green, first win. Just shouting out everybody.
Yeah. I kind of going off what I said though.
Sorry.
I mean, coaches like Izzo and Boeheim, and even the last couple of years to an extent, Coach K, really make Saban look incredible, because I just think that there's a point. Yeah, I'm just saying there's a point where it's like you've been coaching for 40 years. Like being relatable to 20-year-olds is not easy. And so I think that's more so my point about Izzo, is just kind of like, I don't know how you continue to relate to 20-year-old kids. And it's like, and Saban can figure out how to do it. Like Saban does it. He continues to do it. And that's the incredible part about him. But yeah, so it's just more of things like there's a point in time where it's like your message is no longer landing with the generation.
Right.
And it's just kind of like, time's up, buddy. Like,
you know what, you make a really good point there, and you never want to see that the cliche is overstayed your welcome kind of thing. Even
another example would be Bill Belichick,
right? Well, when NFL again, but you're right. I don't think like figures like that in college athletics or sports and really in general get enough credit for that. But like, speaking from my own experience, like, I at times have not trouble relating by any means. I'm not that much older, but I mean, like, even in my day to day, it's just interesting, the interactions, and when you're actually coaching them, you're right, it's a different kind of relationship. So
because it's just kind of like, imagine somebody like rest in peace, but like a Bobby Knight talking to 20-year-olds about how he won a title in 1969 with Army before the 3-point shot was invented. So it's just kind of like,
well, right. And not to mention when he won with Ohio State as a player, the national championship in 1960 for the one. Before he did that.
I mean,
So,
exactly.
Yeah,
it's just kind of like that. Like these kids, like before these kids' parents were born, like it's just like
literally,
it's just so difficult for them to like be relatable.
Yeah, like at that point, you might have coached, like there's literal whole 3-generation households these guys might have coached, 2-generation really, but that might have, it's like, yeah, I coached your dad and I'm coaching you, or I coached your mom and I'm coaching you now.
Yeah, I mean, as an example, as just an aside, this is a bit of a joke for a friend of the show, Matt. He'll know what I'm talking about.
Sure.
The high school basketball coach when I was in high school was my dad's high school basketball coach.
Oh, he's been there that long?
I mean, he's since retired after I graduated, but he was there that long. Yeah.
Remind me where you guys went to high school, or where you went to high school, I should say.
We went to high school in Archbold.
Archbold, shout out for St. Clair High School too. That's where I went to high school.
Yeah.
Anyway, just wanted to throw out another alumnus there, but there was one thing I was talking to somebody about, Casen. Do you remember, like, I don't know how many years ago, maybe a decade and a half, when they used to do the like 24-hour tip-off marathon thing, where they would start a game in like Hawaii and then you'd have games tipping off at 9 a.m. on like the East Coast, and like they would make it so that you could watch a game literally all day? I was thinking about that. Now, there's a reason they stopped. That was not sustainable. Like, it was a cool thing for a few years, but you may not remember that. I remember that very well, but I was just thinking about that because like it, like, I don't know, so many games tipped off so early on Monday that it almost gave me that feeling. And it was just such an odd thing. I'm looking around, it's like 12 o'clock on Monday, it's basketball games. I'm like, there's games tipping off now on a Monday? It's kind of crazy. So anyway, that was great.
Yeah, I also wanted to address sort of at least address a program that has fallen so far down, Louisville.
Oh, I knew you were going to say that.
So
go for it.
I think I've told you before. I don't know if I mentioned it here.
I know we've sent TikToks about it to each other.
But one of my other colleges that I almost went to was Xavier.
Yes.
And so I, am very aware of Xavier basketball. And so a few years ago, the head coach at Xavier, Chris Mack, just left to go be the head coach at Louisville. And he had kind of a little bit of success there. And then after COVID, recruiting issues and something like that just kind of happened, and he got fired kind of unceremoniously. And so it was sort of it was a Xavier basketball joke about that, because, he kind of left him high and dry after he dipped. But Louisville just fired him because it wasn't good enough. And the guy that they hired, not good. And so here they are. They lost a couple exhibition games against teams that they should have beat by 50.
Facts.
And then,
well, maybe not though. That's the other thing too. It's like, on paper, this team should beat them by 50. It's like, should they though? Like, are they?
Well, if they were good, they should have. If they were good, they should have.
I was gonna say they're probably just bad. They won. And then though. They won. And
they opened their first game of the season was against very infamous UMBC that we remember from the Virginia game.
The Retrievers, man. Yes.
They beat them by 1.
They beat them 94-93.
94. What?
Dude, this game.
I mean,
also, I'm looking at the game flow. This game was nuts, by the way. It looks like
it was insane.
Back and forth all the way. Like, this sounds like it was an incredible game. So shout
187 points in a college basketball game is just unheard of.
I mean, that's a relatively defensive night in the NBA.
Yeah. That's low scoring in the NBA, but yeah. In college basketball, that's nuts.
That is crazy. So shout out both teams, because honestly, that could have gone either way. But maybe they're going to turn it around this year. We'll see. I have an early of the week if we want to flip to women's.
Well, I will.
You could probably guess what it is.
Yes.
Yes. No, what are you gonna say? No, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna just say, again, second shout out to Bowling Green, men's and women's both.
And women's, yep.
So Todd Simon, head coach of the men's team, and Fred Shamil, head coach of the women's team, both got their first dubs. Incredible way. I don't know. Did you see the end of the women's game?
I did not see it, but like I know what you're referring to.
So just an aside, hilarious ending. The women played Cleveland State, and Cleveland State Chris Webber themselves. So yeah,
that's a good way to put it. That's accurate. So there's that. One of my favorite things is just locker room celebrations after a coach gets their first win. Really in all sports, but like just they shower you with water. It's just incredible. And it was awesome to see that like 3 times on my timeline over the course of the last like 2 days. So over my various social medias, if you count Syracuse as well, I mean. So that's awesome. I'm just gonna get right into it, man. You can probably guess what my upset of the week is.
Oh yeah.
Shout out Colorado women's basketball. They take down number 1 LSU in a genuinely stunning result. I mean, I'm like, I even made a joke. I'm like, did Coach Prime go in there and give them a speech before that game? Because you very well might have. Because like that's awesome. They won 92-78.
Stunning in Las Vegas. The game was in Las Vegas for some reason.
Yeah, it wasn't in LSU. It wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't at Baton Rouge. Honestly, I mean, just flat out outplayed them. I mean, kept pace the whole time, but like ultimately, like I said, winning 92-78. I gotta say, like taking down the defending champs, for a result like that to happen in the women's game, I feel like is more surprising, but also just with how dominant LSU has been. So, to end the year.
Performance of the game for me goes to Frida Foreman from Colorado.
Yeah.
She's a senior from Denmark. She was 7 for 11 from 3. Just electric.
27 points.
Yeah.
Jeez. Wow. Shout out to the Buffaloes. That's and maybe the neutral location had something to do with it. I mean, I've often said that
is much closer to Colorado than Louisiana.
Right, exactly. Right. But I mean, I've always said, and you might disagree with me out there, you might not. I've always said that the most effective like home surface advantage in sports is basketball by a lot, just because there's no separation between the fans and you, and like they're right on top of you. Like, and that when I say playing surface, I mean home field, home ice, stuff like that. Home court to me has always been the most powerful. In terms of affecting a team that, in terms of an upset. So yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure, before we had storming the field, we had storming the court. So, and that's that for a reason, but I mean, some other interesting results. I want to say this game happened overseas, but South Carolina played Notre Dame and essentially blew the doors off them 100-71. But I'm trying to find out. So I think someone mentioned to me if this game was played in Europe as part of an early season trip. But that was just another result here as I'm going through the women's scores. USC upset number 21. USC upset number 7 Ohio State 83-74. I'm just kind of going through here. I saw a few of these, but I was like, we needed to talk about the really big one first. Let's see here. Shout out if you want to talk about any in particular. I will also say Caitlin Clark returns, obviously. For Iowa, they sit at number 3. They were playing Fairleigh Dickinson, so not to be expected. They put up 102 points over 48 or 46 scored by Fairleigh Dickinson. And UCLA also blew out Purdue. That's pretty eye-opening. Like, it just, whenever there's separation early in the season against like other Power Fives, it's like, that's the difference between these teams. And that goes for men's as well. So, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe there's just something in the water, because that Ohio State USC game was also in Las Vegas.
Oh, okay, so it was part of
the Fame series. So there were 2 massive upsets of the same day in Las Vegas as part of like the same sort of opening invitational type of situation. Really interesting. Must have just been the vibes in Las Vegas, I guess, on Monday.
The vibes, man. Yeah. So there you go. Just pulling it up here. So anyway, I got my early out of the week out of the way. It's nice to have this. Nice to have hoops back. Obviously, we're gonna get some fun non-conference. We might even bring some people on to really talk about it as we get closer. But this is November, and I'm very, very happy that it's back. And I knew you would be too. So listeners out there, if you are, give us your early season hoops. It's not really a sport that we would do a preview for, but we might think of doing that in the future. But yeah, just wanted to make sure we gave some love to the courts today, just with everything that's going on in the world of sports. But are you ready for your of the weeks?
Yeah.
Go for it.
I will open with coaching decision of the week. And that goes to USC head coach Lincoln Riley for finally making the decision to fire defensive coordinator Alex Grinch after they get completely roasted by Washington defensively. I don't know what took him so long. I mean, it's crazy he didn't fire him last off season. It's crazy he didn't leave him in Norman, in Norman. And I don't know why he even brought him there to begin with.
I totally thought you were about to say leave him on the tarmac. I was going to be like, whoa, don't do that. Like Lane Kiffin.
Yeah.
I really thought you were about to say that.
Yeah. There were many times that should have happened, but yeah, USC, I mean,
yeah, you had the,
I mean, they hopefully they'll be able to get a real defense now going to the Big Ten, but
dude, you also had the images of Caleb Williams crying that went way more viral than it should have, in my opinion. Just one man's opinion, but stuff like that is going to go viral. Especially, I know that people compared. He had stuff to say as well, and that's kind of what happens. But for a guy to be that devastated after losing that game, it's like, well, that is kind of it. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's the end of any hope of them doing anything.
At least while
that matters. They're probably going to be in the Tax Slayer Bowl playing Bowling Green. I don't know.
No.
I'm kidding.
Hopefully not.
But it's just again, this would be a time in which Josh from Brentwood would call in to USC Radio Weekly and ask, why are we paying you, Lincoln Riley, $10 million to lose 15 games a season? But I mean, it's just one of those things where it's just like, so many jokes going on about like, what was Alex Grinch doing to keep his job? But because he kept it way too long. But hopefully they can find somebody that has actual defensive ability to coach that.
That's always just brutal whenever you hear someone losing their job in the middle of the season. So like the situation call, whatever it's called for, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, but that's always rough whenever I hear about
it. It was very odd timing, difficult timing, I think, for everybody. I mean, even for the team, because now they have to figure out who's going to fill in. But
I have a shout out of the week, and it is a genuine shout out. Is one that I wanted to make definitely on today's show if we had a time for it. Antonio Pierce, interim head coach for the Raiders. They destroyed the Giants 30-6, and obviously there's been talk. I think we told the story. I think we mentioned the story last week of the coaching decision, all that. What's interesting is, apparently, according to his relationship with Antonio Pierce, that is, it relates like with Mark Davis. Like it sounds like he has a real shot at like having that job. And for them to look that good in his opening, like that says a lot of stuff. Mentally, the players were all there, probably flat out better decision-making in all facets. I mean, it looks like a fantastic decision. It's one game and it was against the Giants, but still, Raiders 30, Giants 6. I mean, that's crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think I think as far as Antonio Pierce getting the job officially is more likely than not, only because Mark Davis is currently, I think, paying John Gruden and Josh McDaniel like $85 million not to coach the Vegas Raiders.
That's true.
So I think he knows he could get Pierce on a bit of a deal, and it was the mistake he made last time was they wanted Rich Bisaccia, the last interim coach, to get the job, and he didn't. And so maybe he'll just say, okay, well, I won't make that mistake twice. Yeah, I mean, and of course there was the reports coming out, which hilarious, of the like player led meeting where they
Right.
just ripped into McDaniels. And
Jeez.
my favorite fact about that is that Antonio Pierce got up and was like trying to coach the guys up and was like, look, when I was a part of the Giants team that beat the undefeated Patriots, we believed in ourselves and X, Y, and Z. And Josh goes up to him and he's like, don't you ever talk about the Patriots like
Patriots
that
like
again.
that again. And it's
It's
like,
dude,
okay.
what?
And like apparently as soon as word reached Mark Davis about that, he like fired him immediately. It was like, okay,
Yeah.
that's enough. All right.
I mean, like, it sucks for the families involved.
Yeah, again,
Because
same thing, right?
apparently Mark Davis called him when his kids were trick-or-treating on Halloween.
Oh,
And so he had to call his wife to get the kids back to tell him.
That's
So
right.
that's tough. The family's involved, but
it's what you sign up for, though, right?
yeah.
I mean, it is what it is.
He'll be compensated heavily,
right,
for that though.
I have another of the week that's kind of like a half serious, half joking, but Diva of the week. Do you know who I'm about to say?
I don't know.
I was gonna say, do you have any idea what I'm referring to? It's been a little bit since this was a story, and it might not have been a story where you were, but it was a week ago. My Diva of the week goes to George Pickens. He had there's reports that, like, he's trying to scrub his social media of Steelers stuff, that he wasn't happy he didn't get the touchdown. When the Steelers beat the Titans literally last Thursday when we were recording last. I was like, as soon as I started hearing this, I thought it was just noise at first, but then when I actually saw like Pittsburgh reporters talking about it, I was like, again with this, it's always Devo receivers with us, and they're always like, really good. I mean, Claypool wasn't like as good as advertised, but anyway, I was just like, oh, here we go. This was literally my, I had one of those, oh, here we go again. Like, I was like, here we go. So anyway, that's my half joke, half could be nothing, could be very significant of the week. Diva.
I mean, it's something to keep an eye on. I mean, I think it's in general mostly him voicing his displeasure with Matt Canada.
It's the offense more than it is the Steelers. I think.
So yeah, I mean, So
also, I will also say this. Again, since I jokingly advocated for it and all that stuff, at this point, like, the Steelers, Canada's going to be with them through the season. I mean, that's plain to see. It's just like, when you're one of the players and you are sensing the same frustration that like the fans are about, it's like, clearly this isn't working. Why are we not doing something different? It's like, I get where the frustration's coming from. That's all I'm saying. I get where it's coming from. So, and when you're as good as he is, like, it's like, I heard people saying like, yeah, it's one thing when he's like, oh, he thinks he is him. That guy actually is him. Like, he is that good. So, and it's very clear. So it's like, can we get him involved, please? Anyway, rant over. This is the one example where I'm like, this guy is actually that good. So, AB was too for a time. Anyway, that's all. Rant over. You can go back to the other weeks.
Yeah, no, we'll see if his attitude gets better, if they can find somebody that'll make it a more modern offense in the offseason. But I had what I seemingly lost track of that.
Happens all the time.
Oh, yes. I had a dog of the week.
Oh, absolute dog of the week.
Maybe.
Ooh, I do too. If it might be
maybe dog is a bit of an overstatement, but that goes to Houston Texans quarterback CJ Stroud.
I was going to say Josh Dobbs.
Oh, yeah.
Two dogs of the week. Go talk about Stroud.
So CJ Stroud, a lot of talk coming into the season, or into the draft, I guess, about this stupid test. I think we talked about it, where he had the lowest score. It's kind of like, what is this test? Because clearly he's the best quarterback in the class.
Yeah, I think it was the Wonderlic test, the one they gave at the draft. Yeah.
It was kind of like that. I don't even
Wait,
know.
no, he was given like a specific test. I remember that.
The S2 thing.
Yeah, it was weird.
Yeah. Anyway, he goes out against the Buccaneers. Incredible game too. I mean, this game had tons of points. He ended up having 470 yards and 5 touchdowns, no picks, and a game-winning drive with like 40 seconds left.
I'm just thinking about the fantasy owners who have him as their backup quarterback, and if he didn't start, and then has a game like that, how many leagues did he just get picked up in this week?
Yeah, absolutely incredible. I mean, he was throwing. But let me just read one of these receiving numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Noah Brown, who, by the way, Noah Brown also from Ohio State, 7th round draft pick in 2017. He had 153 yards and a touchdown. Dalton Schultz, 130 yards. Tank Dell, 114 and 2 touchdowns. Like he's throwing for 470 yards to nobodies.
I mean, at least up to now, they've been nobodies, right?
I mean, the only like highly touted prospect they have is John Mechie on the receiving room, and he had 14 yards. So yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, I mean, if I'm the Texans, I'm trading everything to get Marvin Harrison Jr. Because I mean, you imagine Marvin Harrison Jr. and CJ Stroud together,
dude.
Again,
that you just, that actually is very scary to think about.
I don't think that's possible.
I don't think
because
so
no one's going to let him get that. I mean, maybe the Bears would trade out of it, but I don't know. Anyway, yeah. So he absolutely went out there, proved the haters wrong, set the new single game rookie record for passing yards in a game.
Yeah.
And I think pretty much wrapped up rookie of the year in my book. So
it's going to be hard to top that. I wanted to give some love to Joshua Dobbs. 5 days after being acquired, literally, in lieu of Kirk Cousins, who got injured, shows up, goes to Atlanta with the Vikings. He goes there. Goes 20 for 30, 158 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he rallies and they win. And honestly, they showed a from behind image of him footage for when they got the defensive stop to like secure the win, and his head just like literally it looked like he just got emotional. Like he went like head sank, like 5 guys came up to him, dapped him up, hugged him, and it was like it almost choked me up. And I watched it like 5 times. I was like, that journey he just went on in the last week and change this whole season. Like, never thought he'd be here in this moment. I'm like, this could and who knows, this could be the biggest thing he ever does in his NFL career. It could be. Hopefully it's not, but that was awesome to see. And so way to go, dogs of the week.
Yeah. From everything I've heard, Josh Dobbs is just a terrific human being and a great dude.
He's also a genius.
Apparently he's also like a huge genius.
He's literally like an aerospace scientist, and it's like, well, if football doesn't work out, I'll go do that. He's gonna go do that probably anyway after football. But yeah.
So the incredible story. He gets traded at the deadline on Tuesday. I think he doesn't get there till Wednesday. He doesn't even practice, and because they were going to start Jaron Hall, the rookie. And he gets injured.
He got injured, yeah. I mean,
what you ended up seeing, we saw footage on the sideline of him teaching the offensive line his cadences, on how to snap the ball to him.
And that's incredible. That that is part of game prep. Like, people you would not recognize as a massive deal. Like in the moment, like, no, we need to know how you snap the ball, dude. Like, that's crazy.
From everything that. And from what I've heard, is that Kevin O'Connell, the head coach of the Vikings, was in the headset and in his helmet, basically telling him what the plays were. He was like basically defining the plays to him while they were in the huddle. So he was getting out there in the huddle, basically repeating the call to
like
the
slot,
team.
like slot guy runs an out route. That's your first target. Second
so
guy.
so he'd read the play to the team, and then Kevin would go, "Okay, Josh, like 18's going to run a post, 14's going to run an out route, and then he's going to say make sure to read this. Like your first read is this guy, then your second read is this guy.
Yeah. Every play. That's nuts. Like
it's incredible. So I mean, hats off to Kevin too. I mean, O'Connell, great coaching performance. Have to work with that.
Coaching performance of the week. Another one. Like honestly,
I mean, Kevin O'Connell, is a very interesting dude. I don't think he gets enough credit. Kind of came out of nowhere, and so terrific job from the Vikings.
Also an incredible game too.
Also missing Jefferson too. I think he comes back next week.
Yeah, without Justin Jefferson too. Yeah, wow. I mean, yeah, jeez. So I got to watch a lot of that game. So Falcons actually played pretty well too, but Vikings beat them. So that's all of the weeks I have. And I'll be honest, I am dying to get into the Loki discussion. So do you have any more?
I think I'll leave it there. Let's get into Loki.
Okay, because this might go a little bit, and like we're over an hour already. So we spoiler alert for Loki. This is going to be the rest of the show. We're going to talk about the Loki as the Loki. I guess it's episode. What was it? 5?
Yeah.
So, one of my predictions was correct. I think. I said I don't think it's going to necessarily melt down them necessarily. I think it's just going to scatter them. And that's exactly what it did. It scattered the teams into various different timelines. It really, from what it sounds like, all of them were actually like pulled from in their respective timelines.
I believe that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's like pretty much kind of what it was. And it was awesome to kind of see where everyone was. Cause Casey's like successfully gets out of Alcatraz, and like, it's like, oh, I didn't expect that. Didn't see that coming. And I kept thinking to myself, I bet the one who's actually like gonna be able to help him out is OB, if he somehow goes around to everybody. And of course, that's what happened. I was like, oh, okay, OB's like the same guy basically. Thoughts about that? Because I have one really big theory that does not pertain to what I sent you today via YouTube, which I will let the listeners kind of know what that is at the end. But Casen.
Yeah, I'm not totally sure, but from what I understand, Casey was actually playing a guy named Frank, who was a real life person that was a part of the escape in '63.
Oh, cool.
And so it was a bit of an Easter egg there that I believe. I think this Frank guy that escaped sort of disappeared after they escaped. They never saw him. And so
awesome.
there's theories that maybe he fell off the boat and drowned or whatever, but that's sort of the mystery, is that he disappeared and no one ever saw him again.
So in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, that's what happened to him. He went into the TVA. It's sort of like how they established also in Loki that Loki was DB Cooper in the first season.
Yeah.
He jumped out of the plane. Yeah, they established that he was DB Cooper. So that's another one of those cool Easter eggs. And that was actually in the trailer for Loki season 1. That was awesome. I wanted to talk about this though, because I'll be honest, I didn't really see the twist of Sylvie actually still remembering quite coming. And before I get to that, I should also point out that he finds OB in 1994. Shout out the year I was born. There's one massive leap I have to take in the entire episode, Casen. Do you know what it is? Can you guess what it is? There's a huge leap.
No.
It's like the biggest leap in the entire show for me so far. I'm like, you mean to tell me that he hands OB the TVA, he time slips again, the TVA handbook, and then he's talking to Mobius, trying to get him to remember and stuff, and then OB just walks out of a portal, and it's like, no way, he did not build a TEM pad with 1994 technology. There's no way that just happened. I don't know. I just the reason it was a leap for me is because it had this perspective that it could not be created with our technology. You know what I mean? For them to just be able to do that. That's the one massive leap I've had to make in the entire show, which not a bad writing decision per se. You got to have a little bit of suspension of belief, but like That was the one thing I'm like, no way, come on. I was like, he just did it. It's like, you did it so quickly. He's like, well, it's been 18 months and my wife left me. It's like, oh, geez, OB.
Yeah. He's like,
oh.
my wife left me and I had to move out.
So
Yeah.
I felt bad for OB. Continues to be one of the best characters in Marvel.
I also, for the record, just so sad opening to his character that like he's like putting his books on the shelves at the bookstore.
I was actually kind of devastated for him.
Like that's so sad.
And but then they set up, it's like, wow, you wrote the TVA handbook. I did write a bestseller. I yeah, kind of. But that was interesting. But
he's like, what are you? He's like, so you're a science fiction writer? He goes, yeah, and to pay the bills, I'm a physicist or something.
I got to get a PhD at physics. Yeah, I teach at a professor. I'm a professor at a university, you know, and it's like, oh, okay. But it's like, oh, but you want to be a writer. I got it as the side hustle, the passion hustle, if you will, whatever. I will say this, the effect of everything like becoming spaghetti was not only visually awesome, it was also terrifying. Because I thought to myself, yeah, this is what's gonna, like, you can't just, they presented that really well because you could see it coming. Like Sylvie's listening to the record, and then it's like, I'm thinking to myself, yeah, like if a multiversal war is starting among the Kangs, y'all aren't making it through this, right? Like the timelines are just gonna get wiped out. Like behind the scenes, that's what I think is happening. We can't, in other words, like Sylvie, no, we can't just live our lives in this. But that happens after the scene where Loki admits that he wants his friends back. And I didn't really see that coming either, but like it was a very, very real human moment from a non-human in Loki.
Yeah, I mean, so I mean, lots to talk about, but yeah, I mean, focusing on that scene in particular, the character growth in Loki is like really cool to see, like a villain become like sort of not a villain anymore.
Yeah.
But the crazy thing to like think about is that I think this is really only like a week and a half after the Battle of New York. So it's like, what are we doing here? Like, he was out here trying to destroy Earth a week ago.
He was trying to out here basically be Thanos. I at least take over Earth.
I don't know. I don't know for sure on the time. I mean, like, I feel like there was a lot more time than that, so I don't know. But
I feel like it's been longer because there were times when we see him walking with with Mobius in the first season and stuff like that. You know, like hopefully once the show's all out, like the writer comes out and says, "Oh, it's been this long since Battle New York." You know what I mean? Like, so that's the little nuggets you get from the directors and writers after the show all comes out. But you know, regardless, that's it is cool to see the character.
Interesting thing of note, though, that I think explains it is, I think the part about Mobius is that makes Loki like friends, like view him as a friend, is that he's got a little bit of Thor in him, because he's kind of like humorous like Thor, since the humor is kind of the same. And part of me wonders if that part of him reminds him of Thor, and so because it's not Thor, he like is allowing himself to become friends with him, because he doesn't have the history with that. So I don't know. I mean
they have said,
because that's realistically what the crux of the issue with the relationship between the two brothers was that they always like got along with, when it wasn't about like their relationship, like because they had similar like humors and stuff like that, and we saw some funny scenes with them, but then the crux of the issue was he's Thor and Odin is always going to like him more,
right? He's also Odin's direct blood. Loki is not.
And he's like not an actual Asgardian,
right? And honestly, the dynamic between Thor and Loki is actually one of my favorite in the entire MCU. Like it makes Thor Ragnarok one of the many things is why that's a top 5, top 10 MCU movie for me. I throw that on right now and have the best time. You know what I mean? That's just one of those perfect films. Their dynamic in that is so good, and really, it's pretty good in the second Thor movie too. Not a good movie, but their dynamic's still good. So I guess shout out Hiddleston and Hemsworth. You know what I mean? For that.
Yeah. I mean, and I think as far as people are, I mean, as far as I think people maybe questioning the like character growth is that I think what people forget is that this variant of Loki experienced everything we saw Infinity War Loki go through up to dying.
He
Because
saw
we
he saw it on a screen. I mean,
and so he technically experienced himself basically sacrificing himself for Thor. And so all the character growth we saw with him in the actual like main timeline, he technically still has some of.
Also, even if it only has been that long, think about what he's seen since he jumped in and the TVA took him. Like the stones don't matter. Remember, that blew his mind. I mean, we're talking about season 1 stuff, but like the stones don't matter. And he's also been presented with like a way worse threat than anything he's even seen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, oh, okay, we're not talking about just my universe now. We're talking about the multiverse. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I have a theory. The theory I wanted to talk about today is, and we don't know what's going to happen in the Marvels yet. We'll get there, but just based on what they're doing, I can see because he learns how to time slip at the end. He's able to get back to everybody, and he's like, oh, it's not when, it's who, and he's able to go backwards to before everything is spaghettifying, right? And then he goes all the way back to that moment, you know, when I'm guessing Timely's about to run in, right? And we're going to see that kind of play out. I heard some people saying this episode felt a little bit wasted, like filler. I disagree, because it showed us a lot of character stuff about everybody. It established that, like, it showed us who everyone really is. And I thought it was a fantastic episode. And the writing decision at the end for him to do that, he's like, I can control time slipping now, which I wonder if that's a power he's going to be able to keep. Just throwing that out there.
If it is, that's incredible, awesome. Incredible power. Yeah,
that's so dope. I really like
he's essentially a human tempath. Like, you just go wherever he wants.
Yeah, that is like God's here on another level. If he's able to hang on to that superpower. But anyway, the theory I have is that they're gonna the group here is gonna establish a new TVA, which is basically gonna kind of act as the new Shield. Only it's not for world threats, it's for multiverse threats, and it's going to be mainly to combat the Kangs. Like, can't you see something like that about to happen here? Because
so here's the thing, is that there's a lot of rumors going around there.
It's a good TVA.
That
I'm trying to say
that Loki and the TVA is somehow associated in Deadpool,
right? And
so that would make a ton of sense on if their thing is to basically build up an army to fight the Kang in a multiverse war.
Yep.
And then that would make a ton of sense for them to like recruit Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah, let's just scour the multiverse and just get as many, incredible heroes as we can. Like, you know what I mean?
That would be incredible. I mean, but like,
I could see that becoming a thing also, where like one of the best post-credits scenes could be like maybe they have new gear, like TVA, like, or maybe they don't even call it that anymore, you know? And then Loki walks out and it's like, hey, we need your help. And it's like, oh, they have Loki assembling the Avengers as the new Nick Fury. Yeah. Like, I can see that. Nick Fury's still around, but you know.
So even more on like a specific thing, my theory is that the last thing we see is he lands like right behind OB. I think it's right before Timely is about to walk out the door. My theory is Loki is going to volunteer to take his spot to go do that, because whatever his new power is, he's going to be able to handle the energy. Or
it's maybe the time stone. It's the time stone thing you talked about last week. He's literally the time stone now. Like, yeah, he can just do that. Oh, it didn't work out. Go back. Didn't work out. Go back.
Yeah, and so or maybe he'll just like take the thing and then just basically teleport to the end of the runway and then just put it there and then teleport back. Like,
I also could see him I also could just see him doing a thing where he takes the thing, time skips with it to where way before it's melting down, and it's like, bam, new branches. Here it is. You know what I mean?
That's also honestly a really good point. Is before it even happens.
But then no episode. So it can't be that easy, right? I mean, come on. Like, it's like, oh, end of season. Problem solved.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, by the way, Brad's still like loose. We should probably go get him.
Also good point. Yeah, also good point.
Anyway, they showed him in like the previous on, and I thought, is he going to be back in this episode? He wasn't, but he might be back in this season. So cause some trouble. So I don't know. I had this idea of like, man, this is really shaping up to be like a better TVA. but to fight what the threat is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we'll definitely have to see. Yeah, I mean that'd be a really cool that'd be a cool angle for them to
That's how I'd write this. Hey, that's how I'd write this, because it sounds like the MCU's in dire need of some good writing.
Yeah.
You want to close it out by just at least mentioning this?
Yeah, I guess we have to.
The early reviews of the Marvels are not good. It's got like a 55% on Rotten Tomatoes. Casen and I have passed some YouTube videos back and forth. Who knows? You know, they're based on leaks. It's all speculation until we actually see it. I'm going to try to make time to go see this, even if it has to be in the middle of the week. I can't guarantee if it's going to be by our next show or not. Depending on how this week goes, Casen, we might even hold off on that review, because I don't know how many people might be clamoring to see it, to be completely honest. I'm more worried about that than I am some other stuff. But yikes, man. There might be a reason this was stuck in November.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've heard that it's like average, I guess. I mean, I would say the baseline it would be, is it as good as Quantum Mania, I guess, is like essentially the baseline. And
which
from at least some people that like some of the like hardcore hater YouTubers,
right,
you know, are saying that all these people are being paid off by Kevin Feige, but some of the like, you know, Marvel reporters and stuff are at least saying it's like, you know, average for what's been being put out lately.
Sure.
So I mean, if it's at least a little bit better than the quality of Secret Invasion, it is what it is.
I don't really count you and I as the general audience either. We're not. We're
I mean
we're a pretty Marvel heavy show. So
yeah, I've heard there's some funny moments, there's some dumb stuff. I've heard the villain is like kind of dumb,
cookie cutter.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, it's a Marvel movie that there's like a more than 50% chance that's the case in most of them.
But yeah, I think to be, I also I don't know for sure, but I think I heard that there was like reshoots like very recently to
like this year reshoots.
Yeah,
which is wild when you think about movie making, and you think about the strikes as well.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I think definitely this is one of those things where it was like the movie was basically like we talked last week a lot about Kevin stepping in to solve the issues. I think this was just one of the things where it's like Kevin could only do so much to fix it. So it was one of the things that was on the list, and they couldn't just Batgirl it. So they had to release it, and they had to do something. And so it's just kind of like, get through this. And
can you imagine if they would have just last week been like, oh, actually, just kidding.
Not coming out ever.
Actually, just like straight to Disney Plus. Here you go. Wow. That's incredible. I still can't believe
I mean,
yeah.
I had this on my anticipated movies list. Because I was curious with what they were going to do. And from what I'm going to have to make sure it says. So from everything that I've heard, the performances, Brie Larson looks like she's getting done with this. I guess she kind of phoned it in a little bit. From what I've heard, Iman Vellani is really good.
Yeah,
I thought she was really good in Miss Marvel. I thought
Kamala Khan. Yeah, I mean,
I thought that. I think
she's the best thing in the trailers too of this movie. I'm just throwing it out there. Like, it looks pretty advertised. So
I think maybe she might carry it with a lot of the humor and stuff with her. Because what we've seen a lot of potential.
And also, a lot of people have not. Well, I hope it makes people go watch Miss Marvel, because I cannot specify enough. Underrated show that a lot of people did not watch. I mean, my goodness. So, not saying it's like the greatest thing ever, but like it's a really good show introduction to a cool character from Marvel.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't know. Did we talk about Echo at all last week?
We did not talk about Echo.
No, because the trailer came out on Friday. So tying this in, so an Echo trailer came out last week as well, and we've talked a lot about how that was maybe not going to be good, but the trailer had a lot of Kingpin in it, a lot.
Yeah.
And we'll see if that's just like, I don't think he's in quite as much of it as the trailer is suggesting, but
no, but he's like one of the main selling points because Vincent D'Onofrio as that character is amazing. I mean, he's so scary. Like I'm with you there. I think also that show is going to have to do some heavy lifting of setting the tone of what they want to do now with Daredevil, because
exactly. So from what I've heard and seen, I don't think that Maya, I don't think that she's like the main character. I think that it's kind of like Ahsoka, where she's like sort of mostly the character, but then there's like some other Kingpin stuff setting up. I think it's going to be kind of more like
don't
Daredevil.
Compare it to Ahsoka. Sorry.
Well, I'm saying the vibe of Ahsoka, where it's like not just about Ahsoka.
I was going to say, so she's boring. Got it. I'm kidding. Taking straight shots at a show.
Anyway, yeah. So I think that it's going to be dark. From what I've heard, it's going to be really brutal. There's apparently a lot of blood in stuff, and it's going to set up. So I think it's going to be basically probably like
I think it's TV. I think it's going to be TVMA. Like I really think it's going to be.
It is. Yeah. Like I think they did say it will be, which is great news because Daredevil more than likely will be as well.
And they're making it clear, like, hey, seriously, like discretion advised. Like they've been very upfront with that. That's also why I think they're doing it in like a mini series thing on Disney Plus to kind of see how it does. Like,
yeah, I think it's going to be basically like Daredevil season 0.5. Like it's going to kind of set up the street level Defenders reboot sort of universe type of thing like that.
And honestly, that is obviously and there's rumors that this is the case. That's obviously the perfect opportunity to bring back in Kate Bishop and other street level. We aren't going to see this, but that's an avenue to eventually bring back Tom Holland and other stuff like the street level people in New York. What are they dealing with now? Next generation stuff, right? So this is a long show, but I think we're through everything. Any more thoughts on this before we sign off for a week?
I mean, I think I'll just comment that like I know that in one of the videos that we sent back and forth, somebody made a comment about how Marvel desperately needs to break. I think that's coming. Like we're sort of out of necessity from the strike, and a lot of the reshoots or rewrites that are going on with all these projects.
I think next year is going to be pretty bare.
I think Echo comes out in like January or February, but I think that it might be like it for a while.
Mm-hmm. I will also say that like another one of those videos mentioned, are they going to pivot away from the Kang stuff? I don't think they're going to do that entirely. And we kind of mentioned that last week, like depending on what happens with the end of Loki or whatever, I think you can have this Kang stuff going on and set up the heroes that will ultimately do it. There's an avenue to make it go, but they need to definitely, during said break, go to the drawing board, take their own advice, and do the things that they've said they're going to do. Showrunners, everything, get it back. I think one of those videos also said something like, come back with a smash hit. Don't just keep trudging them out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm trying to yeah, okay. Yeah, I think there's some movies that are supposed to come out next year. Those will probably get delayed if I had to guess. Maybe just to space stuff out. But yeah, I think we'll see on that one.
So anyway, that's what we got this week. You got some extra bonus Marvel discussion there that honestly Casen and I weren't super planning on as of this morning, but it got to the point where we were like, we can't ignore this. So yeah, we hope you enjoy we hope you enjoyed it. We really appreciate and thank everybody for listening and watching each week. I always appreciate the people who I know watch and listen each week and hearing from you. I even hear some people. I've even been told by some folks, Casen, that they're very appreciative that we put our like show and episode stuff reviews at the back end, because like we timestamp our show anyway, but it's like, oh, I'll come back to it once I've seen it. Like I had people doing that for Ahsoka as well. So it's like, oh, okay, well, and then they'll listen. So it's like, yeah, well, that's how we do it. You know, there's never not something to talk about on here. But and it's any final thoughts, my dude?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty pumped for the Loki finale just because I have no idea what this is gonna entail. But
I think it could be bananas. We didn't actually close a book on that. Like, yeah, we'll be back to talk about the Loki finale. I'm pumped. If like, and then we'll do our rating of it. I have absolutely loved this show. Every episode has been like just edge of my seat, pretty much the entire runtime. So they really have something here, and I'm also curious to see if we're going to get another season, because they haven't said or not. We'll see.
We'll see.
We will if there's more story to tell, specifically just with Loki, but we'll see. So on that note, this is Kellan.
This is Casen.
And we will see you at the next stop.